Okay, we are here today with Julie and Wilson Adams. This is a little bit of a different um, episode of the Born Again series because we're not talking about their conversion, and we're not even really specifically talking about anybody's conversion, but we're talking about evangelism through adoption. And Julie and Wilson are some pretty amazing people. They have 4 kids biologically, and correct me if I did this wrong, 4 kids biologically, and then 3 kids who've come home through adoption in Bulgaria. And so Wilson wrote a book, I Am Leah November. If you have not read it, you have to. So I put this in the category of there are people who like scary movies. I don't like scary movies. I have no interest in scary movies, but I do like scary books. And his book is a scary book because it's not scary like, hey, you're gonna be afraid of spiders at night or something like that. It's scary like it pushes you. It pushes you to think about what life is about and why we're here and why God made us and what we're supposed to do with our time. Those are scary books because when you're done reading, you have to close the book and go, okay, what do I do now? And that's what this book will do. And it's a story of their journey to adopt. So thank you, first of all, for taking the time. You're both very busy people. They live in Tennessee. Am I going to pronounce it right? Murfreesboro? Is that the proper pronunciation?
Well, we'll just go with Nashville.
Nashville area.
Nashville area, way better. That's way easier for me to say.
There you go.
So here, let me just start by the first chapter of the book, and I'll just read little excerpts, and then if you guys could expound on it and talk a little bit more. The book starts out with, adoption, I still can't believe we did it. Truthfully, neither can anyone else. Think about it. Why would a couple of 50-something empty nesters, 59 to be exact, and technically still laying claim to the mid-century mark, although we're pushing the envelope, even entertain the idea of adopting children, especially when we've already raised 4 and watched them launch their own lives? I always questioned if I was ready to adopt, and then I realized no child was ready to be an orphan. What you guys have done with your life is not normal, but it is also the sort of thing that you want to be saying that I did with my life, right? I mean,
Exactly. Right. What's normal?
That's a difficult question, isn't it?
It's exactly. And what's normal is at our age, you rent an RV and go out to Mount Rushmore and see the country and, do all those kinds of things.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh,
no,
but, there's times I'd like to go to Mount Rushmore by myself.
Well said on your anniversary.
Yeah, it is our wedding anniversary. It is? Today? Okay.
But yeah, I think the norm is what we tend to follow because that's what the people around us create.
Yes.
And so we feel like in order to be in, society and all, we do what everybody does. And so when you start thinking about adoption, you will go out of your norm. But that's okay because we are called to do hard stuff.
That's exactly right. And too many times we make Christianity about checking the Sunday box. And it's pretty easy to do that, but then you read passages like James 1:27 and remember the fatherless and take care of them, and suddenly it just gets you, and you say, how can I do this? How can I make a difference in the life of somebody who desperately needs a difference? And so this was our way to do that. Others can come at it a different direction, but this was our way to fulfill that command.
Yeah. Scott, sometimes Christianity is looked at through cards and casseroles.
Yeah.
And we've got to get out. We've got to stop thinking that way.
Yeah.
Because cards and casseroles make us feel better about ourselves. Right. Okay. So let's start thinking, let's get out of our self thinking and thinking about someone else. And it's going to take more me time, but it's also going to make me reflect on myself. And so we've got to get out of that mentality.
Yeah. And I agree. I think, one of the things that you had said is I think you had read what you called kind of I don't know if you called it a scary book, but you called it a book that pushed you, which was Halftime.
Yes.
And that was part of what affected you. And then you said halftime happens when you understand you can only live so long. You finally realize you can only buy, sell, manage, store, and attain so much. And you stop long enough to ask the question, what will I do with the rest of my life that will make a difference to others?
Right.
So those are the things that you're talking about. Cards and casseroles make us feel better, but they don't tend to have a long lasting impact. And that's not anything saying against those things, but that's probably not the pinnacle of our Christianity. Let me put it that way, right?
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. If that's it, if that's all we are called to do, then I have to ask myself, why did Christ go through the suffering for me to only deliver a card and a casserole? Mm-hmm. I've got to do more with my life than that.
Yeah.
And like you said, nothing wrong with that. That all has its place. But sometimes we get hung up on, if I do that, that's all I need to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody asked us one time, in the presence of the children we adopted, somebody asked us, why would you do something like this? And my response was, go into all of the world and preach the gospel. There's different ways to do that. And we're conditioned to think that the only way to do that is to go and preach the gospel either domestically or internationally, and then come home and we've done our duty. Mm-hmm. I think it involves a little bit more than that, and that's good to do. But we decided to go take the gospel to a foreign land and bring 3 people home with us so that we could pursue and practice the gospel in our living room over the next several years and try to make a difference in the lives of kids who grew up with a very controverted idea of what Christianity was all about. I mean, they really had no idea, and not even really just did not even know if they believed in God. And so our goal was to bring them home and slowly over time introduce them to the God who motivated us to go and get them and bring them home so that we could tell them about him. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, it is evangelism that takes place every day in our living room.
Yeah, I'm convinced that raising kids is our longest term evangelism program, right? It takes the most amount of energy, but it actually tends to have the highest success rate. If you knew that you could go teach a Bible class and you would have a 75% success rate, which is right around what they say you have when you raise children, 75% chance that they would become a Christian, would you teach it? Of course you would. But the difference is that it takes a lot more of you to do this kind of evangelism. But I also think it's something that a lot more people are qualified to do, right? Because a lot of people think, well, I couldn't go and knock on somebody's door or something like that, or I couldn't go and teach a Bible class, but I can raise a child. There's a lot of us that are parents. So I like that that's something that you guys have highlighted about your journey, is that you really do view it as a part of evangelism. And for these episodes, I guess, or broadcasts that we've been doing during the pandemic, that's what we've been trying to highlight, is what are ways that we can reach people. And, there's a lot of people who wouldn't say, I could go and live in Bulgaria, right? But what you have essentially done is you've taken a piece of Bulgaria and moved it back to the States. And so you are preaching in foreign
Yeah.
lands while also in the Nashville area.
Well, what's really a little side trip to that is Bulgaria is ancient Macedonia. And there's a couple of songs we sing that talk about Macedonia. And in our church building, the pews are angled and the kids sit over toward the front on one side and we're kind of over on the other side. But whenever we sing a song that mentions Macedonia, they cut their eyes over and they look at us to see if we're looking at them, because they know. They know the implication of what that idea of the Macedonian call has meant to their lives. And it has changed their lives forever, but in the process, it has changed ours.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're truly looking for a way to get closer to Jesus, you know, we always say when you get married, you're going to get close to Jesus because you're going to have to figure out, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But if you want to have a little more of that, then bring people into your home who don't believe in God.
Yeah, try that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And teenagers struggle with that many times anyway.
Yeah.
But when you bring people into your home that have literally lived under Satan rule, then you bring them here. That's when you start living a completely different life.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The second chapter in your book, and I'm not going to by any means read all of this, but I will point out that you started this chapter by saying it's easier not to know, and I think that's a huge factor. But then you said we live in a broken world. Our world is torn apart by war, violence, and heartbreak. The numbers are stunning. Over 1 million children have been forced into slavery or sex trafficking. Over 1 billion people on the planet live in poverty, many making less than $2 per day. Poverty is the most common reason children are placed in orphanages. 16,000 kids die daily from starvation and preventable disease. That's a lot of zeros. Yet each one of those zeros represents a life worth saving and a life for which Jesus cares. And I think, well, there's a couple of different things there that I'd like you to talk a little bit more about. Is one, how did you grapple with that? Because those numbers are daunting. And, you know, I'm an adoptive father. I've done this journey domestically. You guys have done it internationally, but you know, something people don't necessarily understand about adoption is it's not an either or. People who are domestic adopters are big fans of international adopters and vice versa. But with, you know, even having done this myself, those numbers are hard to swallow. They're hard to look at, no matter how many times I look at them. So how do you grapple with that? And what is your advice to people when they see the darkness in the broken world, and how to, in a godly way, look at that?
Oh, well, I think for myself, I've decided to be an advocate for children who've experienced loss and trauma. So however that looks, I'm going to do my best to address it. One thing we have to understand is a lot of the hoopla is on the front end, and everybody comes around you and supports you, and what a wonderful thing you're doing, and people mean well.
You're saying.
Yeah, people mean well, but they don't understand. What really happens is after they're home. And what we have to realize is that I can take 3 lives and make a difference with 3 lives. It will be hard, but that's what I'm here for. My home in heaven will be my resting spot. So I'm here now to work hard. So I'm going to advocate for those children in Bulgaria and do my best. And I have to pray about it and leave the rest of it up to the Lord. Yeah. Otherwise, it could get real discouraging.
Yeah.
Because I see lots of families all over the country, and I'm thinking, just go get one.
Yeah.
Just go get one.
You know, people say, how can I possibly make a difference? But when you bring a child into your home, and by the way, a child is a child is a child. It doesn't matter if they are domestic, international, that
Right.
child is a child. Doesn't matter. But once you go and bring that child into your home and have the chance and the opportunity to make a difference to that child, I can't save the world. None of us can save the world. That's not our job. Our job is to reach one at a time.
Mhm.
And that child, somebody who says, well, you can't save the world. Well, we work to save that one. And we saved her world, or we saved his world. And yes, it's like trying to empty the ocean with a Dixie cup. I mean, it's just, you just sometimes feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But the saddest thing to me is that overwhelming feeling prompts us to do nothing. And the
Right.
doing of nothing solves nothing.
Yeah.
At least if everybody would do something, it would make a difference.
Mhm.
One child at a time.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge point, is that you're right. We can't do it all. I mean, we almost just have to seed that point right up front and just say, yeah, I can't fix it all. This world is going to still be a broken world. It's still going to be a mess.
Right.
That's why I look forward to heaven, but I can do something where I'm at. And I like how you put it, Julie, that you look at it and you say, I look at this world and I've chosen to spend my time making a difference with these 3 kids that I can touch. And everybody's going to have something different there, right? So the question is, what am I going to spend my time doing? What we can't do is just shrug our shoulders and say it's too big, I can't do anything, because that's not what we're called to do as Christians. So I one of the things that Jenna, my wife, has said every time that we've adopted, and it's worked for me, has been each time we're looking at paperwork for another kid, because people don't realize this, there's so much paperwork, right? There's just like loads and loads of paperwork.
Yes, there's a lot of paperwork.
And you can tell who fills out most of the paperwork because they're the one nodding the most. Yeah, but you look at the paperwork and it's you're still at the stage where it's easy to not think of them as a person yet, because it's still just paperwork. And Jenna says, if this was, and then fills in the name with one of the kids that we have that's already home, would we go? Would we say yes? And that's always helped me wrap my brain around. I go, oh yeah, of course I would. Wouldn't matter what the medical concern was, or the distance we had to travel, or the economic bit. You'd figure it out. And I think that's starting to get. That's kind of what you're talking about. Is you when you realize they're a person, a child is a child is a child. Then you go, well, we can figure out the economic bit. We can figure out, some of these other things.
Right. One of the things too, Scott, is people who adopt older children get sometimes narrowly focused on, they have to become a Christian. And what if they don't? I've failed. And my thought is that if I can introduce them to God and Jesus and introduce them to the possibilities they have, that's my job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with your children born into your family, you will do your part to introduce them to God and introduce them to what's possible in their life. If they don't choose those things, the tendency is to focus on ourselves, that we have done something wrong. So I think we've got to get over that and understand that we didn't create their loss or their trauma. So we have to start with them where they are, understanding that it may take a little more work, but do your part in introducing them. And at some point they may choose, but they may not, but you tried.
That's all you can do.
And we can't get so focused on that we lose the whole picture.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said it, because it's such a huge point, is that if we are expecting a guarantee that a child we bring into our home will become a Christian, we don't get that guarantee. but that doesn't make it any less worth it. I mean, it's no different than teaching a Bible class or having a conversation about Christ with somebody on the street. We're told to sow the seed, let the soil be what the soil is going to be.
Right.
Free will is still an option.
Right.
I'm glad you say that, because it is true. It's not a guarantee, but it's still worth it. It's still absolutely worth it. And you're introducing them to something they wouldn't have even heard about otherwise. Is that a fair way to put that?
That's exactly.
That's it. That's it. And if they're not worth it, then what's this all about?
Yeah.
Why aren't they worth it? Why aren't they worth our extra time?
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that Christians will help and support us financially to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then even on the other side, once you get home, you still get that support from people that you would have never expected. And so don't ever look at that as, well, I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to have to give up this and That's a very negative way to look at adoption.
Yeah.
Because look at what you're doing because of Jesus. That's what we're doing. Yeah. It's not about ourselves. If we start thinking about adoption as all because of look at what we do, then we're thinking the wrong way.
Yeah.
You're in it for the wrong reason, and you'll regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is something I know that you talk about a lot in the book too, and I won't even get into that bit, but I would recommend, if people are listening, that they should, is you talk a bit about people who shouldn't adopt. Right. And I think that that's important. You shouldn't adopt if you are not all in, if you've got your own kind of drama you're dealing with, if your marriage isn't in a good place. Don't adopt to fix your marriage. That's not going to do it. So I think one of the things I liked about that particular section was that you did a really good job of practically approaching it, because there are some things it's not for everybody. Now, everybody should be doing something, but maybe adoption's not for you, but you should be doing something. And you can always support adoption too.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we can't let our excuses, however, become our reasons. Mm-hmm. Some people just automatically dismiss it for whatever excuse they have, and automatically assume that I can't do this. I mean, we were 59 years old when we adopted. 3 we're 62 now. And so, most people who are 59 aren't exactly doing this. It's not normal. Mm-hmm. But then again, I don't think the Lord calls us to normal. I think the Lord calls us to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And sacrifice means exactly what the word is defined to mean. It means going the extra mile, and it means putting things out there that normally you would not do. But if it can make a difference in the life of one, that's what it's all about.
If you guys are okay with that, I'd like to read another section that kind of gets to, I think, the evangelistic heart of what adoption is. Chapter 4, you said, long before they knew about us, we knew about them. As they went to bed each night in an orphanage on the other side of the world, dreaming of a home and family, little did they know, when it came to all the work that had been done and was being done on their behalf, they had no idea. The plan, the work, the cost, they did not reach out to us. We reached out to them. They only became our children because of a love completely beyond their control and completely outside their imagination. We pursued them. Isn't that the heartbeat of Christianity? God was working to adopt you long before you knew. While you were going to bed each night in the depth of darkness, God was coming. His is a love completely beyond our control and completely outside our imagination. We love only because he first loved us. That's one of the reasons that I think when you talk to adoptive families, they tend to also be more evangelistic families in general. There is this huge connection there, because you begin to figure out some junk about yourself, don't you? And how God feels about you once you're going through that journey.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you start thinking like, I tell our kids, you have no idea how you've helped me become a better me. Because most people are focusing on the children. Oh, those kids are so lucky to have you, and And most of the time people don't realize is what it has done for me
Mm-hmm.
to help me look introspectively at what I've been doing and where I've been missing my mark, but also how to really love people.
Mhm.
Just love the people in front of you. And we have a tendency sometimes to be hesitant about that, because people who look different, act different, speak different, think different, it's hard to get them in our circle.
Mm-hmm.
And we like our circles. And
Sure.
so this is a way to break out of that circle, because we're not here to create circles.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And just that idea of all evangelism, all the way back to the very beginning of it in Christ and his effort to come to the earth for us, it starts with an effort on the person who loves the lost.
Right.
And once you start that pattern of learning to love people outside your circle, they're not already in your group. Once you do it in one area, you start to do it in other areas too. At least I find that.
Mm-hmm.
So it has an effect kind of exponentially in your growth as a Christian, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And our oldest one talked to us about how she would pray at night for a family. Now, this is also the one who was the hardest to talk to about God. She kept pushing that away. But for some reason, she thought, maybe if I pray about this, it will work. Now, fast forward 3 years and she's become a Christian. But isn't it amazing that that's one thing she thought she could maybe do, and maybe somebody out there we call God can answer?
Mm-hmm.
And she started kind of connecting that, oh, maybe he was there watching me all along, and I just didn't know. It's a beautiful story.
It is a beautiful story. It is, yeah. So Wilson, I'm going to read this section just because I felt a lot of peace when I read another father write this, which is when you first found out about them, you got an email, and I won't read through that whole section, but you got the email and it says, I sat and stared. I wrote back, there's no way, we just can't do this.
Right.
And I will tell you, when I read that, I go, oh, thank you. Because that has absolutely been me. That has been me so many times that I'm so embarrassed to say it. But my initial reaction is, no, we're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. I am absolutely the brakes. We joke about it. That seems to be in every couple. There's a gas and there's a brakes. And I'm the brakes and Jenna's the gas. And I think you talked about it as dreamers and realists. Maybe that's the same thing.
It is.
So how did you go from the first one where you go, nope, that's not going to happen? How did you go from that to obviously there's a change? What did you do to get over that?
Wow, I could write a book about that. When they first sent me when they first sent the email, and that might have been you that sent the email, I don't remember, but it had the picture of the three. I was in a hotel room in Lexington, Kentucky, away traveling, and I just wrote her back and just said, no, we can't do three. It's off the table, impossible. Just can't do three. Well, I took the picture and laid it aside. Well, that picture kept looking at me, the whole time. I couldn't throw it away, obviously, but so I'd go out for my walk and I'd come back and there that picture would be. And I mean, I just kept looking at it. So that evening or the next day, I don't remember, I wrote her back and I said, there's something about those kids that I just keep looking at them and realizing that if we don't, nobody will. I mean, we may be the only hope they have. First of all, they are a sibling group of three. I mean, to try to get people to adopt one is hard. To get them to adopt a sibling group of three is just nigh to impossible, especially on the other side of the world. So, but there was just something about that simple picture of this girl and her two brothers that just this I couldn't let go of it, and prayed about it, and eventually it heart was just open. I couldn't say no.
I wonder if, because see, once again, that makes me feel good, because I feel like for me, it's been a lot of the same. As instead of just an immediate yes, I'm more of my heart, my conscience, it just keeps tugging at me. You see the picture, you go back to the email, whatever it is, you think back on the conversation. Really, is it really a no, or is it just, I don't want to say yes because it'd be hard? And I wonder if that comes down to some of what we've already been talking about, of that heart for people. And if you train your conscience, you're going through that process of teaching yourself as you follow Christ how to love the things that he loves and hate the things he hates, so that when you're presented with something you do not want to do, you can't get out of it, because you've now prepared yourself the way he intended. He's now living in you, and your conscience impels you to do the very thing you don't feel like doing. At least for me, I often have felt, at least at the beginning, like I'm almost not in control of it. I can't say no because it's the right thing to do, and I can't look Jesus in the face and not say yes. I don't know. Is that match for you at all? Is like, was your conscience, you look at it and like you were saying, you just knew you're the option?
Well, yeah, I mean, your conscience is there for a reason. And I firmly believe God uses your conscience to help raise your awareness to duty, to responsibility. And how he does all of that, I have no idea. Don't know, and not really any of my business. But
good point.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay, though. I think it's okay to be the realist. I think it's okay to be the dreamer. And good things happen when the gas and the brakes get together, or the dreamer and the realist get together, because I think we each balance the other. We balance the other out. Obviously, God never expects us to do more than we can do. So there's a measure of realism there. Has to be. At the same time, if you never dream it, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
So there has to be a combination of both of those that come together and work together. And God has a unique way of bringing those two together. And he did for us. I'm sure he's done the same thing for you and others. And so you just have to put your life and trust in his hands, and just go with what you feel like he is leading you, wanting you to do.
Right. And there is a word that became stronger in our vocabulary, and that's intentional.
Yeah.
I have to be intentional about how I seek for others. And that includes adoption, but it includes people who are lonely. It includes people who are broken, and they're around us everywhere.
Yeah.
And I have to include them because Jesus included them. I have to include them in my home, in my gatherings, in my family, whatever I can do to make them feel like they are loved and wanted. So we are now more intentional people because we are driven that way.
And it's not any less love if you're doing it intentionally or with a sense of duty or responsibility, is it?
It's not less love. It's just a different kind.
Right.
You know, here's the difference for me, is that when I'm loving intentionally, I don't see it as a duty. I see it because it's coming from a different place in my heart. It's coming from a place because I want to, because I've seen the after effects of what love can do for people who are broken. And so I keep looking for it because I see what happened for me. I see people who've loved me through my brokenness, and that feeling of freedom is wonderful. And I want to share that. That's intentional loving.
Yep.
And there is something to that too, isn't there? That once you've seen the success of it once, you go, oh, I kind of want to do that again. I kind of want to do that. Because once you see how you can put some light into somebody's life, and I think it's important what you said. This isn't just about adoption. Adoption is a gateway conversation to talk about some bigger things that are our attitude towards people and making our circles bigger and reaching out to those who are living in darkness. Once you see success in that once and how much good it does, it makes you want to do it again. You start to say, oh, this is pretty cool. I can actually make a positive impact in meaningful ways in people's lives instead of just another hour of Netflix or something with my time.
Right. Exactly. And isn't that what Jesus has been wanting us to do all along? I think so. And we get caught up in just the stuff of life, and we close our garage door and we live in here, and we never realize that, hey, there's a ton of people out here that could use what you have. And that's truth, but we keep it to ourselves.
Yeah. Comfort is a very dangerous thing, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Well, I mean, I get up every morning and leave the house at 7 o'clock with Alex, and I drive him 25 miles to his school on the other side of the county because he's on the football team. And they have football practice in the mornings from 8 to 9:30, 9:45. And
just getting started with it,
And just getting started for the second week. And it's easy for me I don't have time to come back home, so I end up just sitting and reading or waiting, And it's easy for me to think, man, I need to be at my desk. I need to be getting some work done. But in a bigger picture understanding of life, I am getting my work done.
I was going to say, you are doing the work.
I'm getting my work done with him. I'm giving him what he needs at the moment to help him understand what life really is all about. And so, and that's okay. So whether I get at my desk and I'm able to work at 7, or maybe by the time I get him home, it's 10, it's okay. It's not that big a deal, because I have been working that whole time, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah. And I want to share this story too of how God works with us when we start this process. Our first flight over, we were supposed to go through Paris to get to Sofia. And all those bombings were happening over there, and the airports and all, and I told Wilson, I said, please, anything but going through Paris. I don't want to go. Well, you guessed it.
The Lord took us to Paris.
Well, when I first heard about it, I mean, I cried. I thought, this is it. This is the end. I don't want to do this. And then after this journey, which when people read the book, they will see that we had a lot more of things to be concerned about. But I had to start reminding myself, I'm doing what the Lord has asked me to do. Will he not take care of me through this? Absolutely he will. Absolutely he will. And he did. And so I have learned a lot about that, even at that ripe old age of 59, where I was scared that something would happen to me if I went through a place that had some fear. And he said, I'm going to take you through that so you'll realize I am with you always, even in Paris. I'm with you.
Well, and it's almost like a freebie that we get as Christians. If God tells us to do something, and it's a very clear thing, and caring for widows and orphans in their distress, as you mentioned, James 1:27, that's a very clear passage of something we're commanded to do. So when you go to do that thing, you can have confidence. I know God's with me in this. And so, it'll work out, even if you got to go through Paris. And so there's a lot of those hurdles in life, right? That we go, oh, how would I handle this? But it will work out just fine because you're pursuing biblical things and God doesn't leave you out to dry.
Right.
No, he doesn't. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to, I have already taken up so much of your guys' time, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Here, just one more, and then we'll probably wrap it up here. But what if things turn out badly? Let me ask a simple question. What kind of faith is it that believes and trusts only when you know the ending, and the ending is good? That's a rather fickle faith. Truthfully, a fickle faith is no faith at all. You mind talking about that just a little bit? Because I think that's a pretty big aspect of what you guys did.
Faith is hard. I mean, real faith. We always quote the passage, walk by faith, not by sight. Okay, well, that's easy to quote. It's easy to preach. It's easy to read. It's not easy to do, because we'd rather walk by sight. But in this process, you talk about a faith walk. You talk about a get out of the boat, walk on the water kind of walk. That's exactly what this is, because you're taking a step and you're not sure about the next one. But then again, you have to just rely on him as you just take step by step by step. And there's going to be days when you're going to be like Peter and you're going to sink and you're saying, "Hey, Lord, take my hand and save me." And he will. But it's not always just going to be, everything's not always just going to be peaceful and smooth and easy. But a faith walk never is. Whether it's talking about adoption or anything else we do, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really hard. And we can what if all day long. But what if can become an excuse for us to not do what he's asked us to do. Mm-hmm. And as Julie said a while ago, all I can do is the best I can do. The results are not in my hands. I do the best I can do. I influence the best I can. The results are in his hands. And each of these kids have their own independency and independent mind and spirit. They'll have to make some decisions. But with the help of God, I'm going to give them some roots to hold on to and some wings with which to launch at some point. That'll give them a balance in their life that they would never have had otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we go back to the James 1:27, and we are all rather quick and rightfully so to take care of widows, and rightfully so.
Sure.
But orphans, because they're not sitting in front of us, mm-hmm. we tend to just think that's an outlier, and if I find one, I'll take care of them. Well, I'm here to tell you, I know where they are. Mm-hmm. I know where 9,000 of them are in another country. In our own country, we have foster care full of them. Mm-hmm. So, I hope people will change their mind that if I find one or know about one, I'll do that. Well, I know where they are, mm-hmm. and I can get you there, and I can make sure you get there and financially help what happened. But that cannot be our excuse anymore. Mm-hmm. No more. No, because now we know.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point. We can't live in denial of the realities of the world, and you can't save everybody, but you can do something for some.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Is there anything else that you guys would like, people to know before we close out? Any parting thoughts that you wanted to share?
There's so much information in the book.
Yes.
And the book is available via our website, which is courageousliving.books.com. Yep. Courageousliving.books.com.
Book is here we go. I am Leah November.
I'm Leah November. And so if there's tons of information in that book, and I think it's not only helpful to people who are thinking about adoption, it's helpful to people who want to know, what can I do to help and assist and be a source of encouragement to this family mm-hmm. in our congregation that has adopted a child? What can I do to help them?
Right, exactly. Once you know people who've adopted, don't abandon them. Get right in there and find out, what can I do? You may have to learn some ways to help with the child physically, emotionally. You may need to learn that, but adoptive families need more people mm-hmm. to be willing to step up and help, because Scott, that we need breaks.
Yep.
We need breaks. And it's okay to need a break.
Yeah.
Because we are dealing with things that until people have lived it, have no idea. We have emotions that come up in us that we had no idea existed. And
Yeah.
so we're learning as we go. So don't back off. Get in there and be willing to help. Listen to the adoptive family. They'll guide you on what's best because they're in it. They're in the trenches. They're living it. So, but support them in whichever way you can, and be a help to every adoptive family, because if you can adopt, then help the family who did.
Yeah. And we're available. I mean, we're available. We talk to parents all over the country who have adopted children from young to older. And sometimes they have questions or sometimes they have issues. Doesn't mean we have all the answers, but we at least are available to talk about it with them. And so, I mean, we make ourselves available, and they can contact us through the website as well.
Perfect. And it's courageousliving.books.com, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Courageousliving.books.com.
Great. Thank you guys so very much for your time.
Thank you.
We wish you the best. Wish all of your kids the best. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to open this door to talk about a form of evangelism that we don't talk about often enough.
Right.
So
Thank
All
you,
right.
Scott.
Thanks.
Appreciate it
Have
very
a
much.
good rest of the day.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.